From the Digital Media Center, on the campus of Southern Oregon University in Ashland, Oregon. This is Ramping Up Your English, an educational program for intermediate level English language learners. Here's your host for Ramping Up Your English, John Letts.
Welcome to Ramping Up Your English. Ramping Up Your English is for English language learners from all language backgrounds who have already begun the process of learning English as their second language. It's a program for people of all ages. If you're seeking greater English proficiency, this program is designed to help you reach that goal. Ramping Up Your English is a support program for English learners who have already passed the beginning stages of learning English. We take a content-based approach to helping you reach higher English proficiency. We use English to teach English. The theme for our first unit is Trains and Railroads. This is episode 30, segment 1. In our last episode, we explored Alaska on Alaska railroads. We looked at researching a state and writing a report on it. Today, we look at a country. Now, that won't take us far from Alaska because we're exploring a neighboring country, Canada, by rail. Now, we could say we're exploring Canada via rail, and we would be right in two ways. The short word via means by the way of or through the means of. So saying via rail communicates that we're using the rail system as the means to explore Canada. We also name Canada's passenger rail service when we say we're exploring Canada via rail. The passenger rail system in Canada is called Via Rail. That's its name. Just like the state of Alaska is a huge and varied state, Canada is an expansive and varied nation. Under our theme of trains and railroads, we'll explore a small portion of this country aboard a train called the Canadian, run by Via Rails in Canada. Now, I didn't take the Canadian all the way across Canada, so we'll only get to see the part of this great country from Vancouver to Jasper National Park. Still, there's a lot to see. Let's climb aboard for a Canadian adventure. The Transcontinental Railroad in Canada is legendary. Canada's Via Rail continues the legend. Stretching from Toronto to Vancouver, British Columbia, Via's transcontinental route offers rail passengers some of the greatest scenery in North America and access to Canada's Jasper National Park. The cross-country route was built east to west, but we'll start our trip in the Canadian clean, beautiful city of Vancouver. The city's big, but find the Grand Pacific Central Railroad Station. Go on inside and board Via Rails Canadian for the trip of your life. It took very little time to leave the beautiful city of Vancouver behind. The morning light found us in the interior of British Columbia. It found me in the dome car, videotaping the countryside.
Yeah, this is hard to beat.
The Canadian has two dome cars in its consist. One is available to sleeping car passengers, the other to coach passengers like me. Seating is first come, first served, but I rarely sat. I mostly stood at the dome window, catching the scenery on videotape. The coach also had great views from its large windows. But I kept going back to the dome car, getting this lofty perspective as we followed the Fraser River toward the Rocky Mountains. I'm taking this journey in late March, still winter this far north. It's not unusual for railroad tracks to be located along rivers. It's often the easiest way through, and for me, it's a visual delight.
We pass one of Canada's great treasures, a frozen waterfall. As we made our way east, we saw more mountains. This bridge carries the Yellowhead Highway over the river. Note the great location along the river of this resort. Back in the coach, I was eye to eye with these snow-covered fir trees. Surprisingly, the trees here were free of snow, and the tree line gave way for a big view of Mount Robson, tallest of the Canadian Rockies. Its shroud of clouds makes it visible only 14 days a year. This was one of those days.
Got to be the biggest thrust was right here and pushed everything up. Reminds me of hearing a real good piece of music that if you're hearing it in person, it's much more effective than listening to a record. Whether it's John Denver or Jonas Joplin.
This was the view behind the train as we approached Jasper National Park. This is where I got off. The furthest east I could travel and still get back during spring break. Once I deboarded the Canadian, I was afoot in Jasper Park, free to hike around and see the park's natural wonders.
What a ride. Well, we'll return with a few tips on writing a report on a country and diving into the world of maps. But first, let's watch this.